And I am going to go, whoops, you are now in my mail, which I hope we can get rid of later. And I am going to go full screen. So view slide deck, and then we'll get started. Okay, this is the session. We'll repeat that in a little bit. And folks are encouraged to tweet. Yes, I did start the recording, and we are sponsored by the Future of AI. Greetings, everybody. I'm going to be talking about, we were talking about ethics in the keynote session. I'm going to be talking about how to use AI tools ethically, and AI tools that actually present ethical situations for us. So we'll be doing that. I want you to know I probably won't get through this whole presentation, but you'll have everything with you. What you might need to know about me is I'm an associate teaching professor at Rutgers University in the LIS program. I was a librarian for over 40 years and a school librarian for around 25 years, focused mostly at the high school level. Today, what we're going to look at is large language models, research use cases. We'll be talking about using generative AI as a research partner. We'll consider future search tools and the future of databases in AI. I'm going to introduce you to RAG, and some of you may know a little bit about RAG. And we'll be talking a little bit about academic honesty conversations to have with students. And we'll discuss strategies for leadership. And I have a load of resources I'm going to be sharing with you. Heraclitus said that no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's never the same river and he's not the same man. And that's been true through my two-year journey with AI right now. Every time I turn around, it looks different. Every time I turn around, I think differently about it. And I suspect I'm not the only one. I think this is an exceptional time for us to get ready to lead. I think that AI literacy and new research strategies are right in a school librarian's wheelhouse, and I'm excited about these opportunities for leadership. I also think that we might need to pack a new research tool belt, which considers AI as a collaborator. Now, I mentioned a lot of resources. We'll go back to these slides later so you can get the QR codes. I'm not going to stop on these for very long, but I have an AI petting zoo, which I keep building, which you can use in a PD session with your faculty, if you like. I have a generative AI hyperdoc, which is a very long list of tools, resources, policy statements, and all the things that I need on a daily basis. And I think that you might as well. So feel free to use this, make copies of them, and use them in your own way. This collection of Pearl trees is embedded in some of those the resources I mentioned earlier. And now we're into our regularly scheduled program. So how might we lead? How can we invite generative AI into the inquiry process using content we already trust? How can we build knowledge and not fear? And how can we overcome equity and opportunity gaps? Well, I rely on these folks. These are the thought leaders that I read nearly every day, who ground me in thoughtfulness and give me great ideas. Our students will need to work symbiotically with AI tools for search, for knowledge management, and for their creativity. And I agree with James. We need to have conversations about what it looks like to be a creative, how to be honest about that, and when maybe we can actually rely on others, as I've done for this presentation. This is my little model that I'm using with graduate students and building out about how the use of AI, and you're welcome to borrow this too. I talk about transparency and honesty. I talk about validation and verification. I talk about creativity, originality, and I always talk about reflection. Every project I give my students has a reflective piece where they talk about the origin of the products they hand in. I believe that AI literacy is a foundational element in information literacy, and that it's connected to all the literacies that we already know and love. There are many models. This is one that I especially like, which emphasizes the types of, this is from Digital Promise, It emphasizes the types of activities and thinking we need to engage students in. And those last two, ethics and impact and information and misinformation, are the two that I'm going to be looking at today specifically. We have a lot to worry about as we think about AI for research, the source of the data set, fact checking, equity, who has the content, who has output and who doesn't, privacy and security, information quality, bias, and also shifts in practice. How do we adjust our practice as we adjust to what's coming out? One of my heroes, who's a thought leader as well, on that list, suggests, this is Mary Ellen Bates, just as we used to explain inverted indexes and control vocabulary to our users, we now need to explain the importance of developing chatbot prompts that do more than confirm our unconscious biases. As Gen I becomes ubiquitous, it's crucial that librarians and search professionals are seen as AI whisperers, as well as research superheroes. Whoops. Okay, don't present like me. We're back in business again. By the way, as you just saw, everything here is hyperlinked. So if you click on an article, it should take you back to the original article. So we are in this crazy transition right now. The students are migrating, and it's a de facto, not a de jure kind of migration. There is a de facto transition where our kids are using these tools, and we aren't able to introduce them in our schools because of the terms of use, because of various different regulations, and for very good reason. And these are the regulations that are in place or coming. So most concerning relating to the tools right now are the COPPA compliance. What we're seeing that is already in Congress right now is the Kids Online Safety Act, which is definitely something we have to consider. These all should be top of mind to us. And the reality is that teens and young people are using AI. 53% of 14 to 22 years old, this was in the fall of 2023, were using it to get information and brainstorm ideas, which is relevant to what we're talking about here. There's an awful lot of data that you can go and take a look at. This is from this impact study, and this was in May. There is an AI vacuum in school policy, means its use is currently unauthorized, while people want policies that encourage use of AI. In this one, this is the part of that same impact study from May. Across the board, nearly 50% of students you can see that over there in the second column, are using AI and using ChatGPT at least weekly, both in and out of school. What I want to say here is we're not focusing on ChatGPT. It is not the only band in town, and we're going to show you some other options. I'm going to be talking about both student-facing and educator-facing tools for research today. Important is the human. We need to keep the student in the loop, and we need to think about the old programmer's message of garbage in, garbage out. So what we're talking about today is how search is changing. So we don't need to get rid of our old toolkits, that contain control vocabulary and keywords, and the importance of developing a wonderful query or an effective query. But we can add to that toolkit with a more modern approach, using semantic search and the prompt. And here's why that matters. These are the tools that I use with my high school students all the time. I really upped my level of strategies using pearl growing, citation chaining, journal runs. And these are always, and they're still going to be effective strategies for upper level research. However, what we're seeing is the addition. So we have traditional keyword search. Straightforward, it matches keywords, it matches control vocabulary, it uses metadata. But if we add to that semantic search, which leverages natural language processing to understand the context and meaning of a query, then we go beyond simple keyword matching and consider factors like synonyms, related terms, and the context of all the words used. Now, this is really important. The example they give here is a query that is, and this is, this is from This is from Gemini. I can see the star there. What's the best restaurant in New York City? A keyword search would return results based on the exact words best restaurant in New York City. A semantic search would consider synonyms for best, top, excellent, and would also suggest related terms like fine dining and popular. So if we use both of these strategies, and I'm going to show you how to mush them together and make the best possible stew here. I think that we will have some exceptional success in student searching. Natural language searching, these are the affordances. Semantic search goes beyond simple keyword. We'll be able to cluster not only topics, but articles within a database. We get answer generations, we get synthesis, we may get multiple synthesis and summarizations. We get multilingual support, which is very important with all the immigrant students that we have, and also to reach articles that might not be in English that may be valuable that are happening somewhere else in the world. These things are being integrated in academic tools, and I'll show you what that looks like. We can personalize search results, and we're being able to search in multimodal ways. We can search through video, we can search through images, we can do voice search. And so what I want you to think about, you know the value of Control F, right? So Control F in the past only applied to words. Now, what we have is Control F for concepts. I'm just checking the chat here. Let me know if this is making sense to you. I love the notion of Control F for concepts. I want to say that these are the things we need to consider as we go along. I am aware of all of the ethical issues, and I am aware of the constraints here, and we need to talk to students about them. But there are many things to be excited about. So let's look at some use cases. Large language models are artificial intelligence that are trained on massive amounts of text data to understand and generate human language. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm realizing that I'm going to need to move very fast to get to all this stuff. These are the major large language models, and you've seen many of them. Many of us only talk about ChatGPT. This is a great chart from AI in Education, which does a nice comparison across the large language models. And you can see some of them search the web, some of them don't, and some of them have different affordances and constraints. A thing to know is the Gemini web app is now appropriate or available for ages 13 and over. And that means in some cases, we might introduce Gemini in the middle schools. Now, you're going to need to develop policies and guidelines, of course, but this is something that we are moving towards. We're also seeing the AI in the Google's search generative environment being available for kids from 13 to 17. And there are guardrails and there are ways to sign up for this. I'm going to skip this one. It's very similar.
Ready to up-level your learning here?
Okay, you can watch the video on your own. And again, this is something that kids can turn on at age 13, and it is Google AI overviews. And this is what this looks like. You get the overview, you get forums. This has been the controversial part of it, whether there's a value in forums. And then you get some sites that are usually pretty reliable. So we have the Smithsonian and the U.S. Forest Service for why do leaves change color, and then you get kind of a knowledge graph from Google. So this is something that you can turn on and off in Google Labs, and this is for 13 over. Similarly, Microsoft's Copilot is opening its 13 plus preview, and schools can sign up for this program. And this is a little bit more about Copilot. ChatGPT is still not open to 13 plus. It's open, unless they get parent permission. So we should be careful. I use this as an adult, but it's not really available for kids yet. But what is interesting if you're using this as an adult is it's not just ChatGPT. These featured bots are really helpful. For instance, we'll talk about consensus. We'll talk about the Scholar app. And so you can use these specialized chatbots that search specific content rather than all of the large language model. And that makes a huge difference in your search results, as you can see here. I retrieved only scholarly content when I used scholar.ai. The danger here is that I absolutely think that Google's various searches, and Microsoft has some of these too, are incredibly valuable. And sometimes students are going to need to start with these because they're going to get better content. There's some wonderful things. I could spend days talking about these various Google searches. And I also want to talk to you about Cory Doctorow, who is warning us of the danger of the loss of the vertical result list, where we can actually choose the results that we want across multiple pages with the syntheses that we're seeing. And so we want to be careful with that. And we want to talk to students about that. So now let's look at some use cases for these large language models with the understanding that only 2 of them right now are going to be available for 13 plus. I'm sorry, elementary folks. Right now, there are ways to work with AI, but we're not in our research environment like this. But there's stuff coming I'll be talking about. So this article talked about the various different parts of the research process or the inquiry process that might be addressed by AI. Here's some of the things I do. So this was an interesting question. This is really about semantic search. So a colleague of mine who you may know is writing a new book on couples who have done wonderful things together in terms of research, scientific invention, and all that. And he said to me, how do I find this stuff? Romantic couples is not the term that I'm going to be using. But the thing is, when you have semantic search, you can mitigate the problem. And when I asked for some famous couples across different disciplines whose contributions were a result of their collaborations, I got an amazing list. And not all of them were romantic. The Bronte sisters, not so much, but Percy Shelley and Mary Shelley, Vladimir and Vera Nabokov, Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo would come top of mind, but there are others here that are not, and it organized it by discipline, which I think was really great. So this Control F for concepts, ideas for a research project. In this case, I imagined I had an English project where I had to analyze the works of a Latina poet. And then I didn't know enough Latina poets. So I used it for brainstorming, but not only it did without me even asking. And notice this is Gemini that gives me 3 drafts that I can choose from in terms of my summary and my list. And I was able to use all 3 drafts, which gave me a really good amount of Latina poets. But not only that, it pointed to the poems that it suggested I look at first. And I don't have the background here, and I thought that was really good. I build websites all the time, and I build LibGuides. And so I asked it if it could help me build a LibGuide for a graduate course studying romantic poetry, suggest databases, primary source books, images, criticism, biography, and video. Boom. And I have a database starter, like Starter.do, or a LibGuide booster. I asked it to, imagining I was in an AP US history class, identify the research portals, not give me information, but tell me those major, really meaty portals where I can find promising sources. And it gave me the ones that if I were thinking for an hour or so, I would have come up with. So I was really impressed with this. But knowing the word research portal and that it might understand that was valuable. In this one, I wanted to know, give me some arguments I want to write a report on the president who did the most for civil rights in the 20th century. And it said, why don't you look at Lyndon Johnson? And here are the documents that you might want to use. That's a great start for me. Promising ideas for research. This was about, I wanted Supreme Court cases that had to do with student civil rights. Student civil rights. And again, promising portals. And designing case studies. As a teacher, this is great. This is for a business class, business ethics class, and it gave me great ideas for case studies. And I'm watching the clock. Primary sources relating to the afterlife across the major sacred texts, and identifying controlled vocabulary with which I can go into databases on ADHD. And this is very useful for teachers who are searching both across ERIC, PsycInfo, and perhaps MESH, the medical subject headings. And this is an example of some of the output. a reader's advisory on topics that don't have the control F for a subject heading yet, Afrofuturism. And so it went across series of award-winning books for me, and it found suggestions without having to worry about whether I had a subject heading that was correct. I'm going to skip a few things because I want to get to RAG. And cataloging output was pretty amazing. And here I have a MARC XML record that I translated from. I requested cataloging on genderqueer, and then it gave me a MARC record when I asked for code. Here's another example. Reducing text complexity and translating for students whose first language is not English. Now, I want to talk a lot about academic search in the next 9 minutes. Adam Tay is one of those thought leaders I rely on. This is my playlist for academic search tools. There are problems. Another one of the ethical issues is that these large language models are scraping OpenAI, and the New York Times content is among the things that are being scraped, and the New York Times doesn't want its content scraped. And so this is an issue. These we can talk about with our students. But what's really happening now is this thing called RAG, and we'll look at perplexity. What this means is that we are telling the large language model where to search. And so this is happening inside our databases now. And in this case, they're using Perplexity. They're telling Perplexity, I want you to search inside the Supreme Court cases decided in April 2024. And so they're getting very specific content. RAG, let me just show you some examples. So this is the model. So the user goes into the LLM. The LLM goes into the data source, and that could be one of our databases. And then we talk to the database as if we're talking to a chatbot. So we have the semantic search, we have the advantage of control vocabulary, all of those things, and we're using the content that we already value. And this is just a Gemini explanation. You ask a question, the AI model checks its internal knowledge to understand your question, then it hits the library. It searches the external databases for information, and then you have a chat with it. So this is Perplexity, and this is for 13 up. You can choose academic, you can choose computational. It will search in Wolfram Alpha. And I think it does an excellent job identifying sources, summaries, connected articles, and it does all the things that are the great things about AI and large language models, but it does it in academic literature, or what you choose. Here's my example for, I wanted a variety of soliloquies from female characters in Shakespeare's tragedy so that I can compare them. It did a brilliant job. Not only did it give me the names of the speaker, but it gave me it gave me the act in the scene and a quote. Oh no, I did it again. Sorry about this, everybody. As I said, everything is hyperlinked and you can go into the stuff. You may not be able to do my search, but let me be careful not to do that again. Here are announcements from all of our favorite database providers saying what they're going to be doing relating to RAG and AI. And so you can sign up right now for the EBSCO beta program. And it's coming into EBSCO Discovery. For those of you who are very serious about EBSCO, you might have a discovery service which goes across your various EBSCO databases. We're seeing this happen also with the ProQuest tools. And this is just a video about the ProQuest tools, which we don't have time to do today. This is what ProQuest will look like if you have a ProQuest tool. Now, JSTOR, I hope so. Do some of you have JSTOR? JSTOR already has a text analyzer. So you drag in a paper, you identify the killer article, and it will identify articles like it. And those prioritized terms are, like you can see, those sliders, I want more school librarians, I want less high schools, I want more secondary schools. And so, this is what's coming. Now you can sign up for that's out there. You can play with text analyzer, but right now you can sign up for the JSTOR beta. And the JSTOR beta allows kiddos to play with all of the content in JSTOR. And you can ask questions of the articles. I think I have a slide on that coming up. It asks you to, what's this text about? Recommend topics, show me related content, or ask questions about the text. I asked for an articles about the history of the bagel. And so I got some absolute great stuff. And here are some topics that I wouldn't have thought to look at, including bagel bakers unions. And then we're seeing this happening with Gale as well. In fact, the Gale people are doing workshops showing you, very much like I showed you those use cases, how to do the research in advance before you get to the Gale product. So they're saying, this one was, I forget the name of the presenter, she was demonstrating how to brainstorm topics relating to westward expansion, then bring those topics into one of the Galen context sources, and how valuable that was before. And this is another example of themes in Jane Eyre. So do that search before, then go into Literature Resource Center, and then you have just so much more context for your search. Other things that are happening are the lit review. So what you're getting is connections like Spotify for papers. And so if you have this one killer article, you're going to see all the related papers. To some degree, we had that in Microsoft Academic and Google Scholar, but this is getting to be really big in allowing, if you have anybody doing a dissertation, a principal, I really have to finish right now. ProQuest Dissertations is doing remarkable things with AI. And Consensus is another free tool that is for 13 above, which will do controversial things. This one I asked about long COVID, but the next thing I asked about was the death penalty. So for debate, Consensus is really excellent, and it gives me great articles. It also does citation. I am going to quickly go to the end of this. I want to mention that Search Progress and Search Coach from Microsoft are safe environments where I think you can involve elementary kids. They're going to be talking about AI, but right now they're safe playgrounds to just practice excellent search skills. And they also recently came up with a presentation tool, and this is Speaker Coach and Speaker Progress. So I love writer prompt. This is Presto, I think. I can't see the top. No, sorry, this is Diffit. There's a session on Diffit coming up later. If you haven't played with Padlet, Padlet has now added AI. So this primary sources of the Gilded Age, I did not come up with any of that. I said, give me primary sources of the Gilded Age websites to help me create this starting point for student research, and boom, it happened. It also created a timeline for me on the civil rights movement automatically. Now, I'm not going to use this right out of the box. I'm going to edit it, but it was great starting dough. Conversations about academic honesty. We have just 1 minute left. I believe that you need policies and guidelines in your school, but I also believe each of your assessments is going to look a little different, and you might have to have a traffic light for each of your assessments. This is my thing, but the AI cheat sheet from Holly Clark is better describing the process, your expectations, and all that. All of these things will be here. This is state guidelines, great statements. My favorite is North Carolina's. There is such good stuff here. These are recommendations by grade level in North Carolina for elementary grades, for middle grade. The woman who's doing this there is just brilliant. And then for high school. There's another one called Pedagogue AI. All the education policies are gathered here as well. This is my own policy for one of my classes in terms of the reflection that they are needed. And I was saying this in the other chat, but all information and all output should be interrogated. There's no reason not to use models like the SIFT model on output from generative AI. Here's some ways to apply that. All source lists should be interrogated as well. So on the end, when students submit something, source lists should be graded. You don't want to see hallucinations on source lists, and students should know that that's an expectation. So you need to decide what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. I'm going to share with you a lot of these models here. This is the red-green. No AI is red. Full AI is green. You can do this task by task. There are many models that use that. There are tools for AI citation and student research. I would not recommend the detection tools. The false positives abound. And I think about AI in research is using tools that are AI compatible and not really going the AI resistant route, because there is a lot of value to semantic approaches to research. And these are questions I think you should be using. And to just close up, the landscape is going to continue to shift. You should encourage transparency in the process, engage in more flipping, establish policies that we may need to revise, avoid gotchas, favor conversation about cultures of academic honesty. And as librarians, we have to explore, innovate, and model. And these are, you'll get these. These are the petting zoo. And this is today's session. And I think I have to stop. Thank you. I wish I had more time to do this. I hope this was okay for everybody.